Now on to supply. Supply is the willingness and ability to supply, or what you might call produce, a good. There's kind of two entities in the microeconomy. You have producers and you have consumers. So in demand, we're talking about consuming goods, purchasing goods, going to the store, going to the product market and purchasing or consuming a good. Now we're looking at the supply side. We're looking at firms and their willingness and ability to supply or produce a good at a given price. The firms or the producers have to be both willing to produce the good at the price and able to produce a good at that price. So for example, I can't just go out and make a Ferrari even for $100 million or $1 billion. I just do not have the capabilities to build a Ferrari car out of my own garage. So therefore I would not count in the supply for Ferraris. The first idea is quantity supplied, the amount of goods that suppliers are willing and able to sell at a given price. The law of supply then is the quantity supplied of a good rises when the price of the good rises. Now when we looked at demand, demand was downward sloping. So supply, when you use the law of supply as the quantity supply of a good rises when the price of the good rises. So I'm going to show you what that looks like on our graph. So again, recall that demand was downward sloping, that inverse relationship between price and quantity. And supply then is upward sloping, saying that when the price of a good rises, the quantity supplied also is rising, because remember 0 is at our point of origin. So the farther to the right you get in quantity, the greater the number is. So up above we have our supply schedule. It shows what the price and quantity would be. So if we graph it into a supply curve, at $1 one quantity, put a dot, at $2 4 quantity, another dot, $3 8, and $4 12, we connect the dots and we create a supply curve from our supply schedule. One of the trickier parts about supply and demand is when we talk about what is a change in quantity supplied. Let's say we're talking about the supply of candy. If we change the price of candy, we're only changing the price of the good, and we can move along the curve. So if we started at $1 and 2 units, represented by the first dot, and let's say if we raise the price of candy, the supply doesn't change. And that's something that is maybe seem a little bit tedious, but when we change the price of the good, we're changing quantity supplied, not the supply curve itself. So if we raise the price of candy from $1 to $2, we would represent that on the graph using 2 dots and a movement along the curve, not a creation of a new curve. So when we change the price of the good, in this case it's the market for candy, we change the price of candy from $1 to $2, we don't change supply, we change quantity supplied. Now if we were to use a non-price determinant of supply, for example an input price for candy, something that you'll learn about in the next lesson. If we change something else besides the price of candy, it might be that it's a change in supply itself. Just like demand, and we'll go over this a little bit later, increase supply to the right, decrease supply to the left. But if we say a change in quantity supplied, it's that movement along the curve. If we say a change in supply, then we're shifting the curve left to right and creating an entirely new supply schedule and a totally new supply curve.